The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
With so many people living longer, the fear of outliving your money becomes a reality for many of us. Will I be a financial burden? Will I outlive my money? How will I be remembered? My name is Neil Himmelstein, president of Main Street Planning Group. Please contact me by visiting mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. I will introduce you to strategies that will guarantee you will not outlive your money, that can guarantee you will not be a burden on your loved ones. Through a collaborative approach, we will uncover solutions that offer tax-efficient strategies, lifetime income, and legacy planning, choice, organization, direction, and education. That is the code we stand behind. Contact mainstreetplanninggroup.com, that's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. And listen to me every Friday at 3 p.m. as I host the Main Street Code for Financial Success, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I can always be reached at 631-647-4694, or you can reach me on my website at themainstreetcode.com. And when we talk about code, we talk about choice, organization, direction, and education. And we're here for you, for clients, to help with any of your insurance needs. We specialize in life insurance, long-term care, disability, and annuities, and we work with hundreds of accountants, attorneys, and financial professionals across the United States in developing insurance plans, as well as clients like you, whether you be a family business or an individual that has needs for life insurance, disability, long-term care, or annuities. And as a brief update, annuity rates have been skyrocketing with the higher interest rates. So if you haven't had a chance to take advantage of these high rates, now would be a great time to take advantage of the rates because they won't last forever. And why should you be not doing what everybody else is doing, what the big money is doing, and putting your money into fixed annuities? So it's a great time. And today we're very fortunate to have as our guest Lacey Rowell. Say hi, Lacey.
Hi, good afternoon.
Lacey is with Nationwide, and Lacey, if you were here last week and listening to my show, and if you didn't hear it last week, you can always catch my show on Apple or Spotify. We talked about farms and agriculture and how important it is to here on Long Island. And we talked about family succession planning and trust. And Lacey is an expert in this area. And Lacey, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with Nationwide.
Sure. No, thank you, Neil. Really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. So I have been representing Nationwide's Land as Your Legacy program for over 7 years. This program is near and dear to my heart. And before I came to Nationwide over 13 years ago, I worked for my family's business. Now, I don't have an ag background, but I did grow up in a small family business, which has many similarities to family farms and faces the very same transition issues. I have seen firsthand the very complicated and emotional matter of transitioning our family business from one generation to the next. And I understand the frustration and can relate to being generation 2 and motivating generation 1 to create and implement a transition plan. So my father, thankfully, he had the opportunity to utilize Nationwide's Land as Your Legacy program. And to me, one of the biggest benefits of having him go through that succession planning program was having our trained Land as Your Legacy advisor, such as yourself, ask those difficult, emotional, and very uncomfortable questions. So my brother and I weren't the ones needing to push him to do this very challenging but important work. So thanks to the Land as Your Legacy program, our family is able to have the confidence that our family business will not only be able to continue, but remain in our family no matter what the future holds. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's terrific. Well, I can tell you personally, that I know with clients and even with myself, I have 3 children. I have a boy, a girl, and I have my business. And to me, my business is my child. That's my legacy. That's what I developed. I started from the ground up and built a business, and I want my kids to have it, or I want it to remain healthy and strong, or in my family or whatever. And it directly relates to your family and the emotional impact of somebody building something and leaving it to the next generation. It's like another child. And I think it's so important. And particularly with, farms, you have a situation now where particularly here on Long Island and many parts of the country, but on Long Island, the value of land is so huge that if you leave it behind and you leave it to the next generation, you could suffer some, immense taxation in leaving to the next generation because of the value of this land. And that's where, I thankfully met you and learned about this Land as Your Legacy program. So tell me why this is so important, the work that you do, and how did Nationwide get involved in this whole farm space and everything else? So if you could.
Sure, no. Absolutely. So just to back up a little bit, so Nationwide has a team of highly credentialed attorneys, accountants, financial planners. They're the ones behind the scenes that develop the client's very custom, very comprehensive written transition plan. And it's specifically for the agriculture community. Now, these attorneys are not practicing, they're only consulting. Now, the bonus is Nationwide does absorb the expense of developing the farm family's plan, which essentially is their roadmap to working with you, their advisor, their attorney, their accountant. And now there will be a cost to implement the transition plan. So that's important to have that distinction. Getting the plan from Nationwide will never have a charge, but working with their advisor, their attorney, their CPA will, of course, have a cost to it.
Right. But Nationwide helps put together that roadmap that you need. And, part of it is asking the right questions, as you said to me, which we ask. And sometimes they're a little uncomfortable. Nobody wants to face, that's always been a problem in the life insurance industry. Nobody really wants to face the fact that they may not be there. But, and we don't know when our time's up. But the transition, if we get sick, disabled, need long-term care, or pass away, the transition, then the succession plan is, okay, who's going to handle what if this? It's that what if factor. And you guys have a fantastic program that analyzes all that information and aids in their accountant and their financial planner and their insurance guy in guiding them, how do we best make this happen for you? And it's not cookie cutter. It's individualized for every family or for every farm or for every business. This plan can be helped put together. And here at Main Street Planning Group, we help you implement the plan. And Nationwide is kind of like my back office in helping me develop the plan. So we help you develop it, and then we help you implement it. So why is this so important? I mean, would you go over some statistics a little bit,
Sure. And just to, piggyback on what you just mentioned, I mean, the number one reason why these farms are disappearing is because they're not having those open, honest conversations with the family. Because like you mentioned, it's very uncomfortable.
Right.
Nobody wants to approach the topic. And why this is so important to do is, according to our recent ag census by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, there are roughly about 2 million farms across the United States that are still categorized as family farms. The USDA also estimates that roughly about 29% of them have a transition plan in place, which I personally think that number is incorrect. I think that number is probably a lot lower because there seems to be a misconception in rural America about the difference between an estate plan in a transition plan. So an estate plan is part of a transition plan. It's a very important part, but it's not all of it. So if someone, says all they have is an estate plan, there are still a lot of questions that are left unanswered at transition time.
Right. Absolutely. No, it's a very complex subject. And I think the biggest problem is as we're busy running our businesses, we don't take the time out and analyze the next steps. Sometimes we're just trying to fill that order or get that crop out or whatever it is. That's it's hard to do that long-term planning. Anyhow, you're here with the Main Street Code for Financial Success. My name is Neil Himmelstein, and I own Main Street Planning Group. If you want to reach out to me, I'm 631-647-4694. And my guest, Lacey Rowell, is with Nationwide, and we're going to be back in just a few minutes. Thank you for listening, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein, and I am here today with Lacey Rowell. Lacey is the Regional Vice President for Land as Your Legacy for Nationwide, and Nationwide has put a great deal of money and care into the farm community in this very specific program, which I find, as you know, I represent 30 different insurance companies, but I stumbled across this thing because I know I have some listeners that own farms, that work on farms, and I looked and they had a very specific program for farms and they're very involved. And Lacey, can you give me a little history about that?
Sure, absolutely. I really feel like it's one of Nationwide's best kept secrets. There's not a lot of awareness that Nationwide is deeply rooted in agriculture. We were actually founded by farmers for farmers in 1926 to offer lower auto insurance rates to the rural community. And today, as a company, we are ran by 16 board of directors. 10 of them, including our chairman, are actively farming outside of their Nationwide duties.
Wow.
And in fact, a prior board member who farmed with his brother was the key operator, and he tragically passed away in a farming accident. A lot of things came up that they weren't prepared for, especially the people planning. And this board member went to the next board meeting and asked, what is Nationwide doing to help these farm families have a successful and seamless transition of their operation from one generation to the next? The board voted on launching a farm transition planning program as a service to the agriculture community. And once again, Nationwide absorbs the expense of developing the farm family's comprehensive transition plan. It's really part of our noble purpose and a way to give back to our agricultural roots.
Wow. No, it's amazing. And, there's not a lot of insurance companies that have invested time or resources to developing and helping a particular community like this has. And I find that is a noble purpose, and it does, especially for here on Long Island and many other places, is huge. People don't realize how big agriculture businesses are. It's not just your farm where you get your tomatoes or cows and milk and butter, which is our food source. It's also aquaculture. Here on Long Island, aquaculture is growing and huge, and our environment and agriculture all come into play, and for many different reasons, not just succession planning, but for career planning for your children. People don't realize how many careers there really are in agriculture. It is amazingly, it's not just I'm working on the farm and doing this. There are so many creative businesses generated from agriculture. It's the number one economic engine on Long Island. The number one. It's not oil. It's not gas. It's agriculture. And people go, well, they don't think about it. But people that live on Long Island, they appreciate the open space. They appreciate, getting away from the city. But in order to preserve the land, in order to preserve what we have, in order to preserve the oceans, in order to preserve the beaches, we need this agricultural business, and we need it to succeed. And we need the land to pass from family to family and not all be developed. And part of it is doing great succession planning, like legacy of the land. So, Lacey,
absolutely,
this plan that Nationwide put together that helped is this whole program. What should a client expect if they go through this type of program?
Sure. So what they can expect is Nationwide works with trained advisors across the United States that's working with this program. And for those of you who are listening in, Neil would be your trained advisor that you would be working with. So if you have a need, or if you want to just have a deeper conversation, I really encourage you to reach out to Neil. And really what that will look like is sitting down, and he's going to go ahead and really want to understand, your hopes, your dreams, your goals for your operation, understand a little bit more about your family dynamics. And we're asking those questions really to give the farm the best chance of success, whether it's 20 years from now, 30 years. What decisions can be made to make sure that it's in the best interest of your farm? And then Neil will work with you to collect the financial documents that Nationwide needs in order to put together your roadmap, your comprehensive plan. And once that's collected, Neil then sends that off to Nationwide's home office, which is in Columbus, Ohio. Your information is very secure. We have 2 financial planners at the home office that work on these plans, and then we have 16 attorneys, and several of them are also CPAs. I consider them the most brilliant minds at Nationwide. They're highly credentialed. I have the privilege of sitting on the same team as them and working with them quite closely. So those financial planners, attorneys, they all work together to develop a very custom plan. And as Neil mentioned before, it's not cookie cutter. This is 100% custom to your operation, your family dynamics. And there's really no 2 plans that are going to be the same. Of course, we see a lot of the similar issues and obstacles, but they'll be custom to your operation.
Right. And what's the benefits of somebody going through this process?
Sure. So once the client has gone through the program and they've done the implementation, so remember, implementation is the most important part. If Nationwide designed the most beautiful plan and then you just put it on a shelf and you've checked off your box and you did nothing about it, you're really in no better situation than you were before. So ultimately, what some of the benefits are is this roadmap is for you to work with your team of professionals, and it's for you to have a successful transition of your operation from one generation to the next, as we had mentioned before. And we're going to cover a lot of topics. And like I said before at the beginning, an estate plan is not a transition plan. It's very important, but there's a lot more that goes into it. So we're also going to look at the business entity structure and make sure it's structured correctly. We want to ensure that your operation has proper risk management tools in place. We're looking at the whole package and everything that your operation needs to be successful into the future. And please note too, if you feel like you've already done this work, maybe you've already met with an attorney, you have an estate plan, or you've worked with someone, not only will Neil and Nationwide work together and building out a new plan for you, we'll also do a review of any plan that's already out there and in place.
That's a great point. And we talk about that all the time on this show. And I've had many estate planners on estate attorneys that I work with that actually were on my show. One was on my show last week, and there's a couple others that have shows here that talk about estate planning. Working with a farm is very specific. So you may have an estate planning attorney who doesn't know the intricacies of how a farm works, how the cash flow works, how the documents work. And even the best estate planning attorneys in the world don't know how insurance policies necessarily work, whether the policies are going to survive, whether they're not going to survive. The estate attorneys I work with, even if it's not me bringing it to them, will go over those policies, the good ones, and will send them to me for the review. I don't charge for that. If I can make a situation better, I will get commission and do it with a different company. But typically, a lot of times it's getting the beneficiaries in line, making sure the product is running, making sure whatever you set out to do in your plans are going to accomplish your goals. And I might add that your goals could change. And they frequently do. Listen, the economy changes. We have a storm. We have COVID. We have things that affect your business, whether it's a farm or any other business. And your plans change. You get married. You get divorced. You have a child. Someone passes away. Things change. And these plans need to be reviewed. So I thought that was a great point, Lacey, and I do appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. And just to add to what you just said, I mean, your estate plan is a fluid document, and you really should review your plan anytime there are any changes.
Exactly.
Maybe a birth of a grandchild or there's a divorce. And Nationwide ultimately just wants to make sure your estate planning documents properly reflect your wishes today. So our financial planners, they actually tell us that 50% of the time they say, you know what, your plan looks great. The other 50%, they say, you know, your plan is actually incomplete, or it may not be accomplishing the family's goals. So just a couple of weeks ago, actually probably about 3 weeks ago.
Lacey, we're running out of time. I'd love to hear this. And you know what? You come back next week and listen to our show. You're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. Lacey, thank you so much for sharing Nationwide's experience today. If you need to reach out to me, 631-647-4694. Or visit me on the web, themainstreetcode.com, or Spotify and Apple. Look up the Main Street Code and you'll find me. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Have a great day.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.